Well, hello, everyone. My name is Marisa Arthur, and I'm the Director of the Career Agent Development Program here at DPR Realty. And super excited today to bring to you Kat Isfan with the commercial community. Together, we have launched an incredible commercial real estate training program, and I just absolutely couldn't be more excited to go on this journey and learn all about commercial real estate. I'm a residential realtor. That's been my focus. And the thought of continuing to refer those commercial transactions out, thinking along that line, how wonderful would it be for us residential agents to be able to actually work with our commercial prospects and do it the right way and take incredible care of those clients. And partnering up with Kat Isfan, and having him take us residential agents under his wing is just such an honor. We're going to learn how to do things the right way, and I just couldn't be more excited. And so just a little bit about my friend Kat Isfan. So he is a commercial real estate broker. He has been in the industry for probably close to over 28 years or so. It's actually has been his only job since he was able to work. Since he was about 18 years old, he's only known real estate.
My only real job.
In a real estate family, and so it's in his blood. And so he's just the coolest, funnest guy around. And anyways, I'm excited to share him with you. And so Kat, hello.
Hey there, Marisa. Well, and let me just say this, I know you said you're just a residential agent, but I think you're one of the best of the best. And not only that, because I've known you for so long, you have helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of agents create careers on the residential side. And just last night when I was with your executive team, it was just so amazing to be a part of that kind of caliber of a realtor. And so to be able to work alongside of you, you're the one that actually just makes us look good. So it's great. It's great building this with you.
Thank you. It's exciting. We're all really excited, all of us residential agents, to go on this journey with you.
Well, and as excited as I am for the realtors, which is very much so, I'm also just as excited for the general community, the investors out there, the people that have been thinking and longing and wishing that there was a way that they could learn more about commercial real estate, not just the realtors themselves. And so when we created this platform, along with your mentorship, I'm just so excited to kind of have us reveal this both to the realtor community and the general investors out there that want to be more proactive in the commercial world.
Absolutely.
So, well, do you want me to go ahead and get us started
yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Okay, let me just get one thing set here so I don't put you under the spotlight the entire time. So, all right, so let me get us started. And again, I'm just more, I feel humble to be here and be a part of this journey with everybody that's watching this. But let's start with some of the most important questions we can ask right off the bat. So what do you have when 100 mortgage brokers are buried up to their head in sand? Not enough sand. So, and I can say that having had experience on the lending side for a number of years, along with my realtor commercial background, this makes a lot of sense to me. So anyway, first things first, and we're going to run through a lot of data and a lot of information really quick. But if I can have everybody, since this is actually going to be a recording, I want you to go ahead really quick and go to youtube.com/the commercial community. And I'd like for you to subscribe to that. One of the things that we're doing as a community is actually creating a platform where we're going to be going out and interviewing people that have currently and have had in the past commercial real estate experience, whether they're commercial brokers, whether they're commercial investors, title escrow officers, commercial attorneys, so on and so forth. so that we can help all of us grow at a more accelerated pace, because the more we can tap into other people's experience in commercial, the faster we get to grow. And so if you can subscribe to this channel, we're going to be able to post those experiences onto this channel and have all of us share in that growth together. So if you can do that, I'd appreciate that. It's going to help not just us, but it'll help everybody that plugs into the community over the weeks, months, and years to come. So why did we create the commercial community? And people have started asking us, you know, why a community? Why not just a commercial department or something of that nature? And I think it speaks to two things that are really important to me, and I think they're important to you. And that is, one is for the economy in commercial real estate in general, and secondly, to develop a personal development environment with a commercial compensation plan attached to it. Now, let me speak about those two just for a second. So for the longest time, I used to blame the banks for what has happened in the economy. I used to blame the government or the markets or the interest rates or the other agents. And one of the things I learned since that blaming stage of my life, I went to Webster, who's an amazing theologian, right? And he says that the economy is the organized system of human activity involved in, and we can add whether it's production, distribution, whatnot. But when I read that the economy is the organized system of human activity, I really had to take stock of that and realize that it was my own human activity that played a part and played a role in the economy as a whole. So what I did back then, or what I do right now as a commercial broker, constitutes a portion of what happens in the economy. And so what our goal was with the community, and our thought was, and it's a very BHAG, big, hairy, audacious kind of goal, but what if we could reach everybody in America and help everybody grow in their own knowledge and awareness of the commercial community, so that they themselves feel empowered in the process of helping the economy grow. And just by taking a little bit of responsibility, we can all make our economy that much better, and the community as a whole. And then secondly, it's funny, I read this quote: lottery winners are more likely to declare bankruptcy within 3 to 5 years than the average American. Now that's kind of crazy, because we all think of what it would be like if we hit the lottery. But one of the things I've learned over the years from my mentors is that if your outward experience is up here, but your internal experience as far as your own personal growth is down here, it's only a matter of time until you're going to bring your outward experience back down to your inward experience. And so I actually like what my mentor Jim Rohn says: success is not to be pursued, it is to be attracted by the person you become. And so my belief with regard to this community is that the better an individual that we become, the more impact we're going to have on other people's lives and overall on our own personal financial economy. So hopefully that kind of sets the stage of the two main reasons why we're creating this commercial community. So what is commercial real estate? Now you're going to see a whole bunch of words here, and I'm going to actually just read it for you because I think it has a very profound and basic implication. So commercial real estate is real property whose intended use is for business application, which provides space for lease that can generate a profit, and which requires zoning other than that of a single-family residential lot to accomplish its specific use. So for example, this category of real estate is used for retail use of all kinds: professional office space, hospitality, retail centers, strip malls, restaurants, convenience stores, apartment complexes, professional medical use, land development, and assisted care services. And that's just to name a few. Now that's a lot of words to just say. Picture this: you're going to leave your house today or tomorrow morning or whenever you're going to leave your house, and you're going to need to go to get your hair done. Now, unless it's Aunt Sally in the house right next door, you're going to go into a commercial establishment. You're going to go to the bank to cash a check, you're going to a commercial establishment. You're going to go to Costco to buy groceries. It's a commercial establishment. So it's really amazing to think that once you think about the commercial industry as a whole, everything we do on every single daily activity has some kind of connection to the commercial markets. So now let me elaborate a little bit more on that. There's many sub-markets, or what we would call different industries within commercial, but I'm just going to focus on, for the basic of this being an introduction, the four main industries within commercial real estate. And we're going to just do a big picture view rather than go into the minutiae of all of them. Now let me just do one more thing here. I'm going to go in here and see if I can do this. I'm going to, bear with me. Okay, that helps. Just kind of make sure that the only thing that we hear here is this training. So, so four different industries. We've got the office, the industrial, the retail, and the multifamily. Now, without, again, I wanted to make this community, as we taught through it, commercial real estate made simple, not commercial real estate made complicated. So when you think of an office property, an office building, and it has three classifications, class A, B, or C, all I want you to think of, and the difference between the three on the big scale, is that the newer the property with the most amount of amenities gets you closest to the class A property. The older the property with the least amount of amenities brings you down to the class C property. Now let's go on the other side of the screen where we're looking at multifamily. And then we've got multifamily A, B, C, and D. Kind of take that same kind of idea, but let me just break it down a little bit more. Investors love B and C property because within a B and C class property for multifamily, they can adjust the income and expenses of the property. They can adjust the management of the property. They can do some minor tenant improvements to the property and increase its performance and value. Someone that invests in a D property, really they're just in there to gut it or do some major kind of renovation either to the tenant base or to the property itself, which it's kind of like that fix and flip idea. And then again, class A, it's just what it is. It's again, the more amenities, the newer the property, class A multifamily. Now let's look at the middle section, which is industrial and retail. So industrial, we're going to look at some statistics in a little bit, but industrial, we look at manufacturing, warehouse, distribution, cold storage, telecom, research and development, and showroom, just to name a few. Retail, well, all you have to think about retail is if I'm going to go buy something, I'm typically, unless I'm going to Amazon, I'm going to a retail physical establishment. So Arizona Mills Mall, strip center are the mom and pops that you'll see as you drive around neighborhoods. Grocery anchor stores are just that. Anything that has an Albertsons or a Fry's or a Jewel's or you name the rest, those would be anchor strip centers. Factory outlets, again, anywhere you go and you buy discounted items or large bulk items, that would be a factory outlet. And I don't know that there's too many of those here, but maybe there are. I just don't do the shopping, my wife does. And then we've got this newer thing, which is not quite new. It's been around for a little time, but it's called lifestyle centers. And lifestyle centers is maybe like the Santan Village, if you're familiar with that, or Desert Ridge, where it's not just about what you buy, but it's also about the experience that you have. So you've got multitudes of restaurants, you've got greenways, you've got other amenities that are within the corridor, and they might all be outside of the actual shopping centers themselves. So that would be more of a holistic, big approach to how long can we draw someone based on what we have to offer to stay within this lifestyle environment. And then moving on from that, we've got a whole bunch of other categories. You've got flex properties. And just to think about flex property, it's really just more of a combination of office, industrial, and retail. So a flex property might be 2,000 square feet of office and 4,000 square feet of industrial, or it might be 1,000 square feet of office and 2,000 square feet of retail. So it's really just kind of a combination of those first three industries is what we would call a flex property. Land actually goes in and touches every single aspect of commercial. So you can build office, you can build industrial, retail, multifamily, everything else on land. Hospitality, we think of hotels, motels, things of that nature. Sports, so interesting, sports arenas like the Chase field or a batting cage or things of that nature. Entertainment, movie theaters, music halls, dance studios. And then you've got this whole other aspect of the specialty group. And within the specialty group, you've got your own subsets. So I'm sorry, I think my screen just froze on me. I'm hoping it hasn't. No, there it is. So you've got churches, dealerships, car washes, animal clinics, dispensaries of all kinds, assisted care home facilities, and on and on. So how do we bring all of this into one roof, so to speak? And that leads into a different topic, and that is, what am I getting myself into? It's funny, oftentimes I run across people who say, oh my goodness, this seems like such a big industry. How do I wrap my head around it, right? I feel like someone's just trying to waterboard me with all this information. And the reality is, yes, commercial real estate does have its own love language per se, right? So to learn a language is to have one more window from which to look at the world. And getting into commercial does mean getting into different types of verbiage, right? So in commercial, we have crazy amounts of acronyms, right? So commercial real estate, internal rate of return, return on investment, return of investment, net present value, discount rate, yield, capitalization rate, triple nets, net operating income, letter of interest, on and on it goes. But let me tell you a quick story to put this all in perspective if I can. So my brother and I came to America when I was a small boy. I was 3.5 years old with my mom and dad. My parents couldn't speak English at the time, and they worked 3 jobs, almost like around the clock is what it seemed like, so that in their first year in America, they were able to save $16,000 to buy their first 3-unit with a garden apartment in central Chicago, is where I grew up in Chicago. Now think about this. They're immigrants. They don't speak any English. They save $16,000 to buy their first small multifamily property. Do you think that they had any of these acronyms that they could relate to back then? And the answer is absolutely not. Maybe even to this day, my parents, who retired after 20 years on real estate, on commercial real estate here in America at the young age of 48, still don't know what most of these acronyms mean, because you don't need to. And here's what I'm stressing. There is a simplicity to commercial real estate that if you can just wrap your head around the principles and the major concepts of commercial, you can do fairly, very well for yourself. But yes, it is important to know the language if you're going to communicate with other like-kind individuals in the industry. And we will go through that through the fast pass, which I'll talk about at the end. So all that being said, let me give you a pop quiz since we are on acronyms. So what is the Ford motto? So what does Ford stand for? Now this is for my friends that own Ford cars and swear by them. So Ford stands for fix or repair daily. Okay, maybe some of you aren't laughing. I thought this was funny when I first saw it. Okay, how about this one? What does Honda stand for? Well, hang on, not done accelerating. Okay, so that was my joke for the entire episode. Hopefully you found it funny, and if not, just nod. So what is the big commercial real estate market look like? And so this is where we're going to get kind of into the numbers of commercial real estate to give us the big breadth of what commercial represents in America. So according to one of the largest research companies in the country, and this is over the last quarter of 2018, if you look at the different sectors, so we've got multifamily to this, I'm looking at the left, multifamily, office, retail, healthcare, specialty, hospitality, industrial, flex, self-storage, tower, so on and so forth. And you look at the square footage, all the way down to where it says total. So we're tracking about 70 billion square feet of commercial real estate now that we know of, and that's been made available to this research company in the country. Now, if you look to the far right, that tells us that it represents about $16 trillion of value that we're surrounded by when it comes to commercial real estate. So just all I want you to remember is 70 billion and 16 trillion, because now we're going to go and look at the US residential market. So in the US right now, and this was again back in 2018, it was recorded that we have approximately 138 million housing units in the United States. Now, if you look at this section right here, where just underneath that, where it says 5 to 9 units, 10 to 19 units, so on and so forth. So keep in mind that multifamily falls on the commercial sector, unless, because of financing, you can get a 4-unit, 3-unit, 2-unit under a residential financing component. So if we actually subtract what is multifamily commercial from this 138 million housing units, we've come down to about 118 million housing units. Now, if you look to the far right, and this is for this year's statistics, these are the national averages of what a house is worth in America. And so if we look at the last quarter of $261,000 per household, per house, and you multiply that by the 118 million. Now, I'm just using generic numbers, but we're looking at an industry now that represents about $30 trillion on the housing side. So 30 trillion on the housing, and you've got 16 trillion on the commercial. So what does that tell me as an observer? It tells me that about one out of three assets that are real property in America has something to do that's related to commercial, which means if you just look to the left or to the right of you, you're going to bump into someone that has some type of relationship, and more probably ownership relationship to commercial. It's literally all around us. I'll just say one more quick thing. It's funny, for the longest time, I actually thought that I was the most important person in America. And here's why I say this. I used to own a BMW. Now I'm rebuilding a 15-passenger van so I can live in the van by the river. But no, I've got another car. But I used to own a BMW. And guess what? The moment I bought that BMW, everybody else in America started owning a BMW. It was the craziest thing. I thought, man, everybody must be following what I'm doing. Then later on, I used to own a Tahoe, a GMC Tahoe. And the moment I bought that Tahoe, guess what? Everybody else in America started buying that same Tahoe. Now, was I the most important person in the world or in America at the time? Or did I just start observing what people had already purchased prior to me? So it's interesting that once you start taking ownership of what you're looking at and what you're investing in, it seems so interesting that you start seeing that all around you, right? So anyway, all right. Now there's this thing called the commercial and residential lag. And let me just see what you think about this. So if we look at two indexes, one that tracks the pricing for commercial, which is the red one, and you look at the blue one, which tracks the pricing for residential, it kind of, from just a big perspective, looks like they track close to each other. And I often say, if you know how to do residential and you have 80% of the real estate fundamentals down, it doesn't take that much more to learn how to do commercial. And there's an opportunity in that, and I'll tell you why. So when you look at this, it seems like it's flowing next to each other, side by side. But when you kind of break it down a bit, tell me if you notice some kind of similarity. So from about 2000, both the residential and the commercial markets grew on a upward scale, upward trend, right, side by side. But then at about the first quarter of 2006, what started happening to the residential market overall? It started adjusting downwards, trending downwards. Now, what kept happening in the commercial markets? It kept going upwards. So at the first quarter of 2006, wouldn't it have been nice to be able to have some commercial background, knowledge, experience to be able to take advantage of that upward trend for the next 2 years or a year and 3 quarters, right? While what was happening on the residential side is things started shifting downwards. Now, did they catch up to each other? Absolutely. But look what happened towards the later ends of 2009. So it looked like residential was going to recover. So in the stock market, we call that the dead cat bounce, where a cat will bounce after it hits the ground, and it's not quite dead until it bounces, and then it's really dead. But on the commercial side, look what happened at about 2010. It started recovering. So interesting enough that had you been, again, at a state or in a position as an investor to take advantage of the commercial markets, while the residential markets were still lagging behind, that's where we call it the lag. Interesting the opportunities that could have come out of that. Now let's look at one more thing, because I think it's fascinating to take a look at. And let's look at it from a horizontal perspective. And what I mean by that is oftentimes I get clients who say, Kat, should I invest in commercial now? And I love to use this terminology, which I call it the highest and best use analysis of commercial real estate, which means let's go back here to the 2008 scenario. So let's just say you were a business, and up until that point, you were leasing space in commercial real estate, but your business really required for you to grow, right? So you knew that the opportunity for you as a business was still quite there. You wanted to grow. And instead of leasing something, you wanted to purchase something. You didn't know what was happening in the market for commercial. Everything looked good prior to that. But what you did know is that your business would much rather pay its owner, right, to reduce so you're making payments towards principal to reduce and create equity in the property you own rather than leasing and paying it to someone else. And you also knew something else about your business. You knew that you weren't going to turn your business off anytime soon in the future. So let's just say that you maintained that business for a period of 7 years. So from about 2008, and we just move across horizontally to 2014, which is right about there, right about 7 years, 6 to 7 years. Commercial recovered. Did you lose anything? Rather, you actually gained equity in your property because you're paying down the principal, and your business was able to grow. So using the highest and best use view for commercial, I would have still advised someone that if they wanted to have their business grow at that time, still to take a look at buying and investing in commercial. Now, you look at residential from 2006, and you go across the horizontal view. Now, I'm not a residential expert, so you're going to have to call your residential expert to ask him where the market is today for residential. But the holding time of that property seems to have been a little bit longer on residential than it was on commercial, which I just thought was quite interesting. And that's part of that whole commercial versus residential lag process. So let's take one last look as it pertains to the last graph that we looked at. And let's take a quick look at the recession periods in the market. Here's one of the things I've discovered over the years is that greed tends to build slower over time, and fear tends to crash things a lot faster. So it takes time to build your greed to reach a plateau in whatever market you're in. But greed will crash that a lot faster than it took to build up in the first place. So if we look at the recession periods, so now we're looking at what, 70 plus years as far as this is relevant. But if you look to the right, you're looking at recessions that recovered about meaning that we went through that recession for about 11 months, 10 months, 8 months, 10 months, so on. So for the longest recession that we have to date right now over the last 70 years is 18 months, which was back 10 years ago, right? And if you look at this graph, and since this is recorded, you can go back and study it some more, you'll realize that there's a few years between every few months of a recession, a few years between every few months. And then over the last 2 cycles, which is quite amazing, we don't just have a few years, we have almost close to a decade. And so you're asking the question of, well, when's the next recession, if there is one? And I'm telling you that don't consider it that way, consider it highest best use. Maybe you're dealing with an investor right now who's an all cash player, and he just wants to create cash flow for himself, right? So if he comes in with an all cash offer on the piece of property, what liability does he have? Because when we get into danger the most is when we're most highly leveraged. So if you're not leveraged because you're not depending on the equitable adjustments of a value, because you're all cash and you're creating cash flow in the process, this might still be a very good period to look at with regards to your business and your commercial investments. So now this actually comes from a gentleman called Elliot Pollock, a very, very well-renowned and sought-after economist here in not just Arizona, but throughout the country. So let me just recommend, go to arizonaeconomy.com. So go to arizonaeconomy.com. And on there, you'll actually be able to register for his weekly newsletter that comes via email. And it'll give you a great insight. I actually got this right from his website. It'll give you a great insight into the Arizona and U.S. economy. And then lastly, for those who are thinking, wow, look at all these recession periods. Well, here's one thing I know for sure. Life is like the changing seasons. And I'm reading this from Jim Rohn. He says, you cannot change the seasons, but you can change yourself. And this is my point for why we created the community. The community is not here because we can affect, like we can have a, yes, we can have a direct effect on the economy, but it's only we only have the ability to do that based on our ability to change ourselves. So the more we can help ourselves grow with our own knowledge, our own ability to apply these principles within commercial, as we do that, we affect the economy, but first we have to affect change within ourselves. And that's the whole point behind the community. So let's kind of go into the myopic, the micro, by looking at Arizona for a little bit, and then we'll start wrapping things up. So in Arizona right now, we're tracking about 67,000 commercial properties overall, which represents about 1.4 billion square feet. And currently, looking at the 67,000 properties, although not all of them are for sale, we're just tracking them, but the average sales price is about $158. Now, if we do some math, and I've already done it for you, that actually tells us that the average property right now that we're tracking in Arizona is about $3.3 million per property. So I don't know what it quite is in residential, but I think it's a little bit bigger than the residential home sales as far as the average price for all properties within Arizona. Now let's look at a different statistic. Now we're going to go a little bit more narrower. And of those 67,000, we're tracking 7,700 properties that are actively for sale at this moment. Now, if we do the math here, we see that there's 69 million square feet that represent the 7,700 properties. And having done the math, that tells us that the average property that is for sale is about 8,900 square feet. Now, it also gives us a number underneath that. That means that for every 8,900 square foot property, the average property is on the market now at an asking price of 1.9 million. So if you were working with a client that needed about a 9,000 square foot property for whatever business he wants to apply it to, or whatever investment he wants to go into, your average deal is about $2 million, 1.9. Now let's look at one more aspect. And now let's drill it down even more. And let's just say that we're looking for properties that are only between 5,000 to 10,000 square feet. And what that drills down to is about 875 properties that are currently active on the market between 5,000 and 10,000 square feet, which are average at 1.3 million. So again, what I always tell people is if you can learn how to get yourself in the position of being invested in the commercial market, whether as an investor or as a realtor, the opportunities there are quite amazing on many different levels, and I won't go any more on that. But what that means is that for the average property of 1.3 million, you're looking at an average size of about 7,000 square feet. So let's get out of that and talk about us, right? So who is an investor? So Webster, again, the great theologian, says that an investment or an investor is someone who commits money, now I call it resources, in order to earn a financial return. And why is that important? Because to me, it's the ability to commit yourself to doing something for yourself, which actually also benefits someone else, that gives the greatest amount of return. Whether it's money or time or resources, that is what an investor is. It's someone who commits himself to do something to create value. Now, it's funny because when I talk to investors, the first thing I say to them is, if I'm going to represent you as an investor, you have to realize that I'm no longer going to think as an investor. I'm going to think like an owner and a lender. And why do I do that? Because it's not about what you want alone that makes the difference in making a deal work, whether it's to buy a property or sell a property. But if you're an investor looking to buy a property, it's really how the owner is thinking about the value of his property. And if you're needing to borrow money, it's really what the lender thinks about both you and the property. So I spend a great deal of time teaching people that if you're going to think like an investor and start acting like an investor, you also have to learn how to think like an owner and the lender as well. Will Rogers says, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. Okay, one last aspect, and then we'll wrap it up for sure. And this was interesting when I took a look at this, because if you're active right now, working a job or running a business, you're probably paying active real estate taxes. But if you're a passive investor, and tax laws, and again, I'm not a certified tax accountant, go seek legal advice from those people. And I'm just kind of paraphrasing. But in the general rule of thumb, if you're a passive investor, if you're an owner of commercial or residential, for that matter, and you're passively generating rental income, your tax bracket falls somewhere between 0 to 20%. That's quite amazing, isn't it? Right? It's a lot different than 35 or whatever the top tax rate is right now in the marketplace for active participants in generating income for themselves. So I thought this was really interesting, that I would rather retire as a passive investor than an active worker or an active business owner. All right, so what does this all mean for us, right? So what we have done is we've actually taken the time to create a pass, and we're calling it a fast pass, because as you'll see on the next slide, we've tried to consolidate as much knowledge as possible into a framework that you can actually apply and be very proactive. And what's amazing is we're actually entering the last 2 months of the year, which if you take this seriously and you apply this, whether it's to your real estate business or to your investment business as an investor, you could probably see some dramatic improvements in your bottom line in 2020 by just taking a look at this fast pass that we're offering. So it's an 8-week course. This class right now that you're involved in, the Intro to Commercial, is week 1. So there's 8 weeks, and that's the Intro to Commercial. Every week, so if you look at the bottom, each class will be taught online weekly, starting Wednesday, November 6th at 6 p.m. That's next week. And she'll be made available for review for a period of 24 hours, which means that if you can't be on the live class, which will happen next Wednesday at 6 p.m., we are going to hold on to this recording so that you have 24 hours to come back and be a part of it. So we're also going to do conference calls where you can plug in and have more of a Q&A environment. The community is going to be a year-by-year membership, which means that you'll get access to the community for the first year for free. And so that means any other general knowledge commercial classes that we create, you'll be able to attend those classes. And we're also going to provide you with a commercial market update report, which means, and a lot of property owners love this, where every month they're going to receive an idea of what's happening in the marketplace as it pertains to their specific property. So now let me speak to the agents that are online here that are DPR agents. So this FastPass course actually satisfies the educational portion of the Certified Commercial Agent designation within DPR Commercial. So if you're a DPR agent, there is actually a place within the contractor agreement where you can build up using this platform to become a certified commercial agent within DPR and be able to operate at the highest compensation level within the plan itself. So this program satisfies the educational application to that. And then we're attaching along with this to DPR agents a 60-day online success module to help accelerate your commercial business in 2020, which again, it's a must-have for anyone serious in becoming a certified commercial agent. And we'll talk more about that on our coaching call, which will happen actually, I think, following this class, specifically tomorrow, if you're watching this recording right now. So what are my options? If you're an investor or if you're a realtor and you didn't have this FastPass available to you, here's where you would have gone. So 15 years ago, I undertook this course called CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Member. And I think back then, if I remember correctly, it was actually 5 courses, 4 core plus an elective, but maybe it was 2 electives. The application fee is $650 for the designation, and the course costs, if you're a member, $7,800. If you're a non-member, $9,400. Now, is the FastPass cover everything that CCIM does? No, but that's why we call it a FastPass, because we want you to move fast into the marketplace with the simple knowledge of what you need to actually go ahead and create success for you right away. Otherwise, through CCIM, the average individual finishes that course within a 3-year period. So you can choose 8 weeks or 3 years. I still recommend CCIM, but I'd say start with 8 weeks and then move over to CCIM. Somewhere in the middle, you've got the National Association of Industrial and Office Professionals. They have a 4-course training designation that can take up to 2 years. Their application fee is a little bit less, and of course, it's only $3,000 to $4,000 to go through that process. So what did we do for you as the investor? You can actually see it right here, so we're not pulling any punches. We wanted to make it so affordable for the investor, that is the guest, to be able to plug into this environment, that it's only if you're not looking at growing something within commercial or growing yourself with having more of a commercial knowledge base and mindset that this won't be valuable to you, and it's affordable to absolutely everybody. But listen, we're not even interested in the 249. So if you're a guest, you're an investor, we're not even interested in the 249. We're more interested in getting this across to as many people as possible within the overall community of our country. And so what we're doing is we're actually offering a guest bonus. So start with us today through the FastPass process. You'll spend $249 to get started. And within these 8 weeks, if you can help us identify one other person that wants to join the FastPass for themselves, which will help them grow in their commercial knowledge for their own application, their own growth, we're going to refund you the $249. As long as, first of all, if you're watching this, we're giving you a 2-day deadline to register for this class at $249. And yes, you must complete all 8 classes within the 8-week process, because we want your commitment to help yourself grow. We don't want your $249, but we knew that if it was free, no one would take us seriously and take action. Now, there's a very special thing for DPR agents. So if you're a DPR agent, you're actually getting a free scholarship, compliments of Dale Milton, the owner of DPR Commercial. Now, this is crazy. I didn't really want him to do this, but he seems to love his agents that much. So if you're a DPR realtor at any stage in your career, as long as we feel that you've got a basis of knowledge and fundamentals in real estate, you're able to jump in on this scholarship. So how do you get started? How does anybody get started with this process? So you'll go to dprcc.com/fast start, dprcc.com/fast start. And you're going to get two options. If you're not a DPR agent, so yes, this is available to other agents, but you do have to go through the Fast Pass registration process. Again, if you help invite another guest within your 8-week process, this will be then refunded back to you. But if you're a DPR agent and you click Start Here, you'll be able to just put in your ADRE license number so we can validate that you are a DPR agent in fact, and the free scholarship applies to you. Guys, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for your time. I don't know what time it is quite right now, but I'm so excited to roll this out, this intro to commercial real estate. I hope that everybody sees value in this. I wish this was available 27 years ago when I got started. And again, I'm so excited to build this with Marisa and with anyone else that wants to run with us and just make a huge impact in the economy for the commercial real estate marketplace. Love you guys. God bless, and see you guys at the next class. Bye for now.